Hello and welcome back to Vanished Memories, a channel specifically dedicated to getting out lesser-known true crime and missing persons cases. My name is Brianna, and today I will be presenting the joint deaths and disappearances of 4 individuals. Their names are Kenshon Ward, Shante Bohanan, Joanna Wright, and Marlo Gully. This case will be a little bit different than my other cases, considering the fact that we are dealing with both 2 missing persons cases as well as 2 death investigations. This case also does have a little bit more coverage than other cases that I've covered, but I felt it was necessary because a lot of the details are very interesting, and there's less coverage now that the case is almost a decade old. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. I post videos on cases like these every Wednesday. So before I fully delve into these cases, I do just want to give a brief trigger warning or content warning for those watching. Today I will be mentioning the topic of firearms and gun violence. I will not go into detail about crimes committed with them, but it will be a general theme throughout today's video. Because of this, viewer discretion is, of course, advised. Today, as I mentioned, we will be discussing the intertwined cases of 4 individuals who either went missing or were killed in the city of Chicago in Illinois. Because of this case can be quite difficult to follow, so I will do my best to present that information to you right now, and I will do it in chronological order so that it makes the most sense. Also, be aware of the fact that some of these cases do not have as much information as others, but I will do my best to present all of the information that I have available to you. So without further ado, let's get into these joint cases together. So the first case that I will present to you today is the case of Kenshan Ward, a 21-year-old black male who was murdered on July 13th of 2016. At the time, he lived in the south side of Chicago, which you will see is a theme for everyone else that I discuss in this video. Unfortunately, in the case of Kenshon, I was unable to find a lot of information about his background or upbringing. I did pull quite a lot of my information from a TV show that aired about a year after all of these cases took place. However, unfortunately, I wasn't able to garner a lot of information about Kenshon. There were advocates or family members of the other 3 people that I will talk about in this case in that documentary or the episode, but unfortunately no one was there for Kenshon, so I could not get a lot of his background. What we do know about Kenshon, unfortunately, is that on the day of July 13th, 2016, he would be found in Marquette Park with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was found at approximately 3:44 p.m. that afternoon, and unfortunately, by the time first responders got there, there was nothing that they could do for Kenshon. He was pronounced dead at the scene. To this day, Kenshon's murderer has never been found or any suspects been named. Police say that they haven't garnered enough information to lead them to any substantial leads or suspects or persons of interest in the case. However, what police would eventually find out is that several of his friends or acquaintances were with him on the day that he was murdered, and soon after, they would also go missing or would be killed. At the time of his death, Kenshon was in a relationship with 20-year-old Shante Bohanan. I am unsure of how long he was in a relationship with her, but she was a black woman who was also living in the south side of Chicago at the time. Shante was the youngest of 4 children, and her mom, Tammy Pittman, would say that she very much enjoyed being the baby of the family. Her mom would describe her as outgoing, outspoken, spontaneous, and very funny. She enjoyed being with her friends, her family, and was always very easy to get along with. At the time of this case taking place, her mother, Tammy, would say that Shante actually had a goal of going back to school and doing some traveling. As I said, I'm not quite sure how long Shante and Kenshon had been together at this point, but I do know that Shante's mother, Tammy, had only met Kenshon once before his murder. And unfortunately, it was known that Shante was present at the time that Kenshon was murdered. Shante and Kenshon would actually be walking together at the time that the shots started firing at him. And Shante would recall to her family how scared she was and how she had to run for her life. Thankfully, she would be able to find safety in a local store as the shop owner actually recognized the danger that she was in and had allowed Shante to hide in his bathroom until her mother was able to come pick her up. Her mom would say that Shante was, of course, terrified by what had happened. Not only was she distraught over being so close to the shooting, but she was also very much upset and grieving the loss of her boyfriend Kenshon. What's more unfortunate is that after this event, Shante was also subject to speculation on social media about her possible involvement with Kenshon's murder. These people started to speculate that she might have had something to do with it, given the fact that she never got hit. Shantae's sister, Tabitha, would recall to newspapers about how scared her sister was and how she was nervous to talk to certain people or go into certain neighborhoods for fear of something bad happening to her. Not only was she scared because of the rumors that were spread about her, but she was also terrified because her boyfriend's killer had not been caught. Shantae's family would do the best they could, of course, to rally around her and provide support during this really difficult time in her life. Shante was, of course, still very distraught over what happened, but she decided to push through and do as best as she could in life. That brings us to the day that Shante would go missing. This was July 24th of 2016, only 11 days after her boyfriend Kenshon was murdered in front of her. There are several different versions of events leading up to Shantae's disappearance, so I will do my best to cover all of them and explain each one individually. According to the TV show that I referenced earlier, Shantae's mother, Tammy, would say that she had spoken to her daughter that morning on Sunday, July 24th of 2016. She would actually ask her daughter if she would like to go to church with her, but Shante would politely decline, saying that she would like to go to her friend's house instead. Shante would also tell her mother that she was going to go to work and would call her after getting out of her shift at Taco Bell that night. However, in that same episode that I'm referencing, I also found that one of the detectives in the case that was reporting on it stated that Shante also was going to a memorial service of some sort for her boyfriend Kenshon, so I'm not exactly sure which version of events is true. Now, of course, this isn't the biggest discrepancy, whether she went to her friend's house or Kenshon's memorial service of some sort, but I did find a very big discrepancy in a 2023 article that I was looking into. This version of events does not seem to be widely known for some reason, but the article does specifically reference police reports and quotes from Shantae's sister Tabitha. I would be inclined to believe this one more due to the fact that it references specific police reports, but I'm also not sure why the detective that was talking on that TV program did not specifically reference this. However, according to this source from 2023, Shante did not tell her mother that she was going to a friend's house or even the memorial for her boyfriend. Instead, she would tell her mother that she was actually going to her boyfriend's family's house in order to grieve his loss with them. It is alleged that Tammy, Shantae's mother, had told her not to go, but Shante was insistent that she felt as though she needed to help them grieve, and in order to grieve herself, she needed to be with them. She also felt as though she needed to pay her condolences to his family directly. Now, remember, in the TV documentary that I mentioned, Tammy did not mention any of this at all, so I'm not really sure why there's a big difference in the 2023 article that I'm talking about. According to this 2023 article, though, later that day after Shante left the house, she would actually call her sister, saying that she had a quote-unquote gun held to her head. And because of this, she said that she was not allowed to leave her boyfriend's family's house. This, of course, would terrify anyone, and it did so to Shantae's family, who would go to Kenshon's family's house to get her and see if she was okay. But when they arrived, Kenshon's family said that Shante had actually left already. This allegedly is documented in some type of police report. So, like I said, this version of events is not well known, and I'm really not sure why it's so different from other versions of events. I have no way of knowing which version of events is accurate or not. However, I thought it was worthwhile to mention all of them. It does seem as though the next part of the case is widely accepted. Tammy would go immediately to the police station to ask officers to search Kenshon's family's house for Shante and to file a missing persons report. Unfortunately, police were very dismissive to Tammy. They would disregard Shante as a runaway and tell Tammy that she could not report Shante as missing for 24 hours. Be mindful that making someone wait for 24 hours to file a missing persons report is actually against not only state law, but police procedure. It is a common misconception and bad practice by law enforcement, but unfortunately a lot of people are led to believe that they cannot file a missing persons report for certain people unless it's been 24 hours since last contact. This is absolutely not true. You always have the right to file a police report at any time of a missing persons case if you feel that it is necessary. So, turned away and upset, Shante's mother, Tammy, would go back home and attempt several times to reach her daughter. She would text her and call her, but unfortunately got no response and would get her voicemail every time. Tammy would also come to find out that Shante had never made it to her Taco Bell shift that night, which is where she worked. And this was, again, very uncharacteristic of Shante, who was a very responsible young adult. Because of this, the family's worry would, of course, grow. Due to the fact that Tammy believed that she genuinely could not report her daughter as missing for 24 hours, she would not attempt to do so again until the next morning. That morning, she would take Shante's father with her and make him insist to police that they had to file this police report, which eventually they would agree to and file the report for them. It's absolutely disgusting that Shante's family were led to believe and forced to make this report a full day after she had gone missing. Unfortunately, what's even worse is that police still would not take the matter as seriously as they should have. It's said that the police did not really start a search or any type of investigation for that matter until the next night, so what I believe would be June 26th of that year. That night, they would actually search Kenshon's family home, but they would find nothing. However, of course, you have to think about the fact that it's now been 2 full days since Shante had reported that his family had held a gun to her head. And if they actually did do something to her, they could have easily gotten rid of evidence by that point. I do just want to mention, I'm not specifically trying to target or accuse Kenshon's family of anything. As we know, the residence was found to have no evidence of anything to do with Shante's disappearance, but I purely just want to get that information out there. Police did, of course, take way too long to act in Shante's disappearance, and unfortunately, Shante's family would get even more devastating news just a few days later. If we follow this timeline, I believe that it would be on the night of July 28th, but I'm not 100% sure. However, what we do know is that shortly after Shante had gone missing, a homeowner who lived on 92nd Street would eventually find something very unsettling. On the night of what I'm assuming is July 28th, this homeowner would hear incessant barking from the neighborhood dogs. According to him, this barking lasted quite a while, and because of this, and because of how abnormal it was, he decided to go out and check what was going on. He may have been concerned that someone was on his property trespassing, trying to break in, or trying to steal things. He would walk around his property until he got to his garage, which, according to him, he never really used much. However, he would decide to open it to check if anyone was inside. And unfortunately, someone was, but they were deceased by this point. It was Shante, whose deceased naked body was in a garbage bag. I've also heard that it was in a garbage bin, but I'm not 100% sure which is correct. Of course, after this horrifying discovery, the man would call the police to inform them of what he had found. However, to this day, Shante's cause of death is still considered undetermined, and just like her boyfriend Kenshon, her killer was never found either. Shante would not be the last in this string of crimes. Unfortunately, we still have 2 more cases to talk about today. The next person that we'll talk about today is 33-year-old Joanna Wright. She would go missing on December 18th of that year, 2016, so about 1 week before Christmas, and that was about 5 months after Kenshon and Shante's deaths. Now, Joanna, just like the next person that we will be talking about, did not seem to be very close friends with Kenshon or Shante for that matter, but it is known that they were some type of acquaintances, and Joanna and the next person that we will talk about were at the scene of Kenshon's murder. I will be sharing with you a lot more physical information about Joanna and the next person that we will talk about, Marlo, considering the fact that there's a lot more descriptive information since they are missing rather than deceased. Joanna was a 33-year-old woman who lived in the south side of Chicago, just as Kenshon and Shante did. She was black, approximately 5'2", and weighed about 100 pounds. Joanna had brown eyes and brown hair, and at the time of her disappearance, that hair would be styled in dreadlocks, which were about mid-back length and had red tips. She also has several tattoos on her body, which I will list off now as well as show on screen. Joanna's tattoos would cover both her arms and her hands. These included the name Londa in script below 2 rainbow-striped Venus symbols, the name Joseph, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple stars, the word D unit, a rose, and swirls. She also has Mary 1936 to 2009 tattooed on the center of her upper chest, just below her collarbone. I unfortunately could not find much information about Joanna's upbringing, just like I couldn't find as much about Kenshon, but I was able to determine that she was the youngest daughter in her family. She also was very well known and well respected in her community. She was a very prominent member in the local LGBTQ+ community, and at the time she was in a relationship with a woman named Sierra, though I wasn't able to determine how long they had been together at this point. It was also known before Joanna went missing that she was a hairdresser. So on the day of December 18th, it seemed as though it would be any other day for Joanna and her family. However, later that day, Joanna's girlfriend Sierra would start to become concerned for Joanna when she wasn't responding to any of her texts. Sierra would say that this was very uncharacteristic of Joanna, and they always kept in pretty constant communication. At approximately 1:45 that day, Sierra would become so concerned that she decided to contact the police. However, at the same time, police were also getting an entirely different call about someone who they later would find out was most likely Joanna. At approximately 1:45 that day, Joanna would be seen near the intersecting streets of Talman Avenue and Rockwell Avenue. This is specifically in the Marquette Park neighborhood of Chicago, which, if you remember, was where Kenshon was killed. While Joanna was in this area, unfortunately, witnesses would see something very unsettling. Someone called the police at this time to report that they believed that they had seen an abduction. According to the person that was reporting this incident, they had actually seen 3 to 4 men leave a vehicle and approach a woman and grab her. This woman is now believed to be Joanna Wright. At the time, she was fighting back and screaming for help, but unfortunately, the 3 to 4 men would actually be able to successfully put her in the vehicle. The car that they had with them that she was forced into was a newer model blue Mazda that had Ohio license plates. Unfortunately, not that much is known about the investigation that took place after Joanna's abduction. However, I was able to find that police did attempt to triangulate or ping her cell phone, but unfortunately they could not get much information from that. Other than that, unfortunately, we really don't have any other information on the search for Joanna, and as of today, we do know that she is still missing. That leads us to the last case in these 4 joint cases I'm presenting to you today. And this is the missing case of 26-year-old Marlo Christopher Gulley. Marlo would go missing on October 9th of 2017, less than a year after Joanna's abduction. Once again, he lived in the same area as everyone else I've talked about in this video, and again, it's alleged that he was at the shooting of Kenshon. Like I said, Marlo was 26 years old at the time that he went missing. He was black, between 6'1" and 6'3", and weighed approximately 225 pounds. He also had brown eyes and black hair, which was styled in dreadlocks at the time. It was said that Marlo would sometimes use the nickname Chris, which was his middle name, and he also sometimes went by the name Marlo G, or Marlo Gulley. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but I will put it on screen. Marlo had his ears pierced, as well as a few tattoos. I, again, was able to find pictures, so I will attach them on screen now, and I will be looking down once more to read these tattoos off to you. Marlo had the words "Rip Scrap" on his upper left arm, the name Sharon on the left side of his abdomen, and the Grim Reaper on the left side of his torso. Marlo was born on June 24th, 1991, and he was born as the youngest child with 4 older brothers and 1 older sister. I was able to find that Marlo's mother's name is Melody Palmer, though I was not able to find a specific name or much information out about his father. What I was able to find was the fact that when Marlo was born, he actually was given the name Christopher Marlo Gully, so his name was actually rearranged. But about 10 months on into his life, his father decided to change it to what we now know it as, which is Marlo Christopher Gulley. As a child, Marlo was said to be very happy and always smiling. He was also known as a jokester to his family and friends, and really valued the company of his family. At the time of his disappearance, Marlo actually had a 4-year-old son, and his girlfriend at the time was pregnant with what I'm assuming is their second child. I'm not 100% sure on if his first child, the 4-year-old son, is also from the same mother, though. Marlo's mom, Melody, would say that fatherhood really changed her son's life for the better. He was reportedly very involved in his son's life, and according to his girlfriend and his mother, was always involved in doctor's appointments for his girlfriend's pregnancy. He was also very involved in the growth and development of his second child and would make it a point to make sure that he went to every doctor's appointment with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, Marlo would last be seen just before midnight on October 9th of 2017. He reportedly was out with an acquaintance that night, and they had parted ways on 64th and Campbell Street. It was said that after this, he was actually set to meet a woman named Brandy Jones. I'm not exactly sure what he was meeting up with her for or how he knew her, and I'm also not 100% clear on if he actually did successfully meet up with her that day. Namus does report that he had met up with her that day, but I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere else, so I did just want to mention that. What is slightly odd is that after Marlo's disappearance happened, it seems as though Brandy Jones actually took a leave of absence from her work. But other than that, I was not able to garner any more information about Brandy Jones and her possible involvement in Marlo's disappearance. This was the last confirmed sighting of Marlo, though unfortunately it would not be known that he was missing until the next day, October 10th. His family, specifically his girlfriend, would figure out that he was missing when he did not show up to the prenatal doctor's appointment like he was supposed to. Because of the fact that Marlo did not show up, his girlfriend decided to reach out to Marlo's mom, Melody. And when she did, Melody tried her best to comfort her and just assumed that this was a one-off thing and Marlo would get back in contact with them very soon. However, when a lot of Marlo's family tried to contact him through text and calls, they unfortunately would get no reply. And since then, he was not seen again. The family would eventually file a missing persons report for Marlo a few days later, but unfortunately, as I said, he has not been seen or heard from again. So that concludes all of the information that we have about these 4 separate cases, but I do want to mention the biggest theory about these cases. Now, this theory you might have garnered from the way that I've presented this information and the details of each case, but the theory is that if these cases are truly in fact connected, it could be that they were all connected by Kenshon's murder. Due to the fact that Shante, Marlo, and Joanna were at the scene of Kenshon's murder that day, it seems as though a lot of people believe that Kenshon's murderer could have possibly been fearful of either retribution or identification and decided to do something to silence the 3 of them. In Shante's case, we know that she was killed. However, in Marlo and Joanna's cases, they are still just deemed missing. However, I do think it is possible, unfortunately, for them to be deceased if we think that Kenshon's killer was trying to silence them. In this theory, there unfortunately is not any known suspects or persons of interest. It seems as though this theory will remain just that, a theory, until someone hopefully comes with the right information to solve these cases. If you or anyone you know has any information about these cases, any information that you think could be slightly related, please reach out to the proper authorities. It seems as though all of the 4 cases that I've discussed today are being handled by the same agency, which is the Chicago Police Department, and I will have their information on screen right now, as well as in the description box below. Thank you once again for tuning in today to hear about the intertwined cases of Kenshan Ward, Shante Bohanan, Joanna Wright, and Marlo Gully. If you enjoyed learning about these cases or found them educational, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video if you feel so inclined. Again, my name is Brianna, and thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Vanished Memories. Bye!